The Hookman story is one of the most famous urban legends in American history. Chances are high that you've heard a version of this story and that you consider it the definitive one. But here's the way I've always heard it. While sitting in their car in Lover's Lane, making out, a teenage couple hears on the radio that a psychotic murderer has broken out of jail, only a short distance from where they are. The girl starts to panic and begs her boyfriend to take her back home. He tries to calm her down, but she won't let him. Eventually he gives in and tries to start the car. They're out of gas. They sit in the dark and then they hear a noise. The boy goes to see what it was. His girlfriend begs him to stay, but he won't listen. A half hour passes and the boyfriend is nowhere to be seen. The girl is too afraid to step out of the car. She starts to hear raindrops falling. Then she notices them on the windshield. Those aren't raindrops. It's red. It's blood. She jumps out of the car, looks up, and sees her boyfriend tangled in a tree, his stomach ripped open, blood dripping down. Then she sees a man with a long jacket, a hat, and a hook for a hand in the distance watching her. She runs back in the car and tries to start it. It won't. Time after time she tries. Then she hears a horrible screeching. The hooked man scratching the door. She screams and nobody hears her. And she probably knows her fate. Before I started doing research for this, I assumed this was the version everyone knew. I'm not sure exactly where I first heard it, and I'm sure I added my own little storytime flares over the years, but this is the version I always knew. Unknown to me, though, this isn't considered the standard version at all. Now, before I get into it, a quick reminder. If you want more videos just like this one, be sure to like and subscribe so I know that you're interested. Now, without further ado, this is the story of the Hookman. The first known appearance of the story was in a Dear Abby column. For those of you not familiar, Dear Abby was a hugely popular advice column that ran through the 1960s. Think of it as a mix of an advice and a gossip, aimed squarely at an audience prone to a good moral panic. Here is the first time this showed up in print. If you are interested in teenagers, you will want to print this story. I don't know whether it's true or not, but it doesn't matter because it serves its purpose. A fellow on his date pulled into their favorite Lover's Lane to listen to the radio and do a little necking. The music was interrupted by an announcement said there was an escaped convict in the area who had served time for rape and robbery. He was described as having a hook instead of a right hand. The couple became frightened and drove away. When the boy took his girl home, he went around to open the door, and there he saw a hook on the door handle. I don't think I will ever park outside as long as I live. I hope this does the same for the other kids. Jeanette. Now here's the thing. That letter was published on November 8th, 1960. But notice Jeanette herself says that she doesn't even know if it's true. She heard it somewhere, so the legend was already out there, spreading by word of mouth, before it even made its way to a newspaper. Folklorist Jan Harold Brevand, the guy who basically put urban legends on the academic map, traced the hook back to at least the mid-1950s, and figured it had spread among American teenagers by 1959. So Dear Abby didn't start it. Dear Abby just caught it. And the purpose of the story is pretty clearly to scare teenagers, or more likely their parents, out of premarital sex. Unfortunately for Jeanette, though, that didn't quite pan out.
Well, did you get my beer? Cute, Bob, real cute. See anything you like? What's the matter? Can I get your ghost, Bob? All right, come on, where's my beer? Well, can't you answer me? Okay, don't answer me. Are you weird? Well, I'm gonna call Lori. I want to know where Paul and Annie are. This is going nowhere.
Finally. Hello? Hello?
Here's another common claim, though, that the Hook Man is based on a real serial killer. The one often connected to it is in the 1946 Texarkana Moonlight Murders. And this is basically made up. A little legend inside of this legend. Sure, it's possible Jeanette had heard about some real killer, but from the letter, she doesn't exactly seem like the sort of person digging into true crime cases from 20 years ago. I'll cut the theory a little bit of slack. The serial killer panic of the America 1960s and 70s absolutely added fuel to the story's spread. But the Hook Man is not based on a true story, any more than any story about a guy killing another guy. It's much more likely that this was just a myth that grew over time. Fears about teenagers staying out late, into fears about scary people out at night, into maybe one of those scary people could kill you, and finally, maybe the scary man had a hook for a hand. Until poor Jeanette heard it and got sent into a panic. And folklorists had a field day reading into all of this. The most famous take comes from Alan Duntz, who gave the full Freudian reading. The hook is a phallic symbol, and the hook getting ripped off the car door as castration by a girl who's afraid of sex. Others, like Bill Ellis, saw the killer as a kind of moral custodian, showing up to interrupt the young couple right to when the things get going. However you slice it, the scholars agree on one thing. This was never really about a guy with a hook. It was about sex and fear of punishment. Which brings up a question. Because you can see, the original version is nowhere near as violent as the one I grew up with. So what happened?
Here it comes.
The blood is all wrong. Why do they do that? It's too red.
Wait, here comes another. Hearing.
Ooh! Yes! Predictable. I knew he was gonna bite it.
How can you watch this shit over and over? Shh! When do we see breasts? I want to see Jamie Lee's breasts. When do we see Jamie Lee's breasts?
Breasts? Not until Trading Places in '83. Jamie Lee was always the virgin in horror movies. She never showed her tits till she went legits.
Could afford a decent pair.
What'd you say? That's why she always outsmarted the killer in the big chase scene at the end. Only virgins can do that. Don't you know the rules?
What rules?
You don't... Jesus Christ, you don't know the rules?
Have an aneurysm, why don't you?
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex. Big no-no! Big no!
I'm a dead man.
Leave him in popcorn. Sex equals death, okay? Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs. No, the sin factor. It's a sin. It's an extension of number 1. And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
Believe it or not, the story didn't stop anybody from having premarital sex. But teenagers did think it was pretty cool. And naturally, they cared a lot more about the scare factor than the moral lesson. So they found ways to add violence and gore. Usually with the boyfriend dying. The setup mostly stayed the same, but the way the boyfriend dies changed depending on who's telling it. Maybe they ran out of gas, maybe the car broke down, or he heard a noise and wanted to check it out. None of that really matters. It all comes down to who can come up with the scariest ending. One of my favorites is this. Then they saw a man with a hook for a hand standing there. He raised his other hand, revealing the head of the boyfriend and the keys to the car. And of course, the classic, the police showed up. They pulled the girl out of the car and warned her not to turn around. But she couldn't help herself. When she did, she saw her boyfriend's body hanging upside down, stab marks all over it. There are so many versions, and I'd love to tell you all of them, but instead, why don't you leave your favorite in the comments? If you see one down there that hasn't been posted yet, go ahead and add it.
What do you want?
As the story spread, people started giving the killer local flavor. Areas like the Appalachia, the Hook Man lost his arm in a coal mining accident, and the escaped convict angle got dropped entirely. In other regions, he's a railroad switchman who had his hand crushed off by a train. Sometimes he's a disgraced butcher who used the hook to cut meat. And in some versions, he died in one of these accidents, which turned him into more of a supernatural figure. Because a lot of these versions came out of college campuses, the Lover's Lane setup sometimes got abandoned completely in favor of a dorm room. Or the other classic horror setup, the girl home alone as a babysitter.
I'm not going to be here much longer. Dr. Mandrakis and his wife are coming home.
I know.
Can you see me?
Yes.
Sorry, I turned the lights down. Turn them back up if you like.
Don't.
Don't. You really scared me. If that's what you wanted. Is that what you wanted?
No.
What do you want?
Your blood. All over me.
The constant reshaping is exactly why folklorists find this story so interesting. It survives because it has no fixed version. Every teller files off the parts that don't scare them particularly and bolts to something that does.
Go downstairs. I have a surprise for you.
She looked in the mirror, and I don't know why, but she said his name the last time.
Candyman.
She turned out the lights.
Because the Hook Man was so famous, it only made sense for Hollywood to find a way to cash in. And for a lot of people, the movies are where they first ran into the main beats of the original story. There are a ton of films with a hook-handed killer. In I Know What You Did Last Summer, the killer takes revenge on a group of teens after they cover up a hit and run. Although, somewhat disappointingly, he didn't lose his hand, and he just chooses to use a hook. And if you're not forced to use a hook, I don't know why you would. It seems like it has a real limitation that a knife or axe just wouldn't. Candyman is my favorite on the list. Highly underrated slasher in my opinion. Deserves to be in the same tier as Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger. He's sort of a hybrid. Part Hookman, part another urban legend, Bloody Mary. Here's a detail I love though. The hook itself traces back to a story director-adjacent horror author Clive Barker heard for his own grandmother. A cautionary tale of a hook-handed man, Baker turned that into his story, The Forbidden, which the movie is based on. In Barker's original story, Candyman is a white man in working-class Liverpool. The version everybody knows, the black artist murdered by a lynch mob haunting Chicago's Carbony Green, that was added by director Bernard Ross for the film. So even Candyman, the movie, is doing the exact thing the whole video is about. Taking an older story and reshaping it into something new. Is Bloody Mary a future episode? We'll see. And then there's the not-so-quite cult classic Lover's Lane.
Believe in me. Be my victim.
The Hookman was one of the most important landmarks for horror. It can be reshaped to bring a scream to any audience, and that's the whole point. Whether you first heard it as a moral lesson or just a good old-fashioned slasher, the story probably stuck with you. Tell me your favorite version in the comments. Click here to see my video on Coffin Joe, a Brazilian horror legend. And if you made it this far, you might as well like and subscribe so you don't miss any more.